we want to hand it over to attorney Michael Cord and Leon Williams, who will give their introductions, and then we're going to go into the question and answer.
I think I'll start, and first of all, I want to thank Brother Diop and InPDUM for having this program tonight. I mean, far too often Africans complain and moan and bitch and whine about the criminal justice system, but nobody does anything, so let's give them a round of applause for organizing. I mean, that's extremely important. Let me just spend about 5 minutes doing a brief introduction, and I'll turn it over to Leon. When I speak at programs like this, I always start out by saying that I'm not a lawyer who happens to be a black man. Instead, I'm a black man who just happens to be a lawyer. And there's a big difference there. Also, I tell people that I'm not naive about how the legal system works. I understand the racism there. I understand the classism there. So I don't go to court to get justice. I actually go to court to expose the injustice. And that's critically important. If you go to court as a lawyer to expose the injustice, you're going to win each and every time. When I went to law school, I was born and raised in North Philly, went to Cheney University, and went to Ohio State Law School. When I was in law school, I was really naive because I thought that all the Africans that were in law school went there in order to change the system. I thought they went to law school to become Thurgood Marshalls and to fight for the rights of black people. I was really naive, and I found out that they didn't go to law school to change the system. They didn't go to law school in order to change North Philly or West Philly or Chicago or Detroit. They went to those law schools to get out of North Philly, to get out of West Philly, to get out of the hood. And for me, that's not what it was all about. So while I was in law school, I was there, I felt like a soldier behind enemy lines. I'm sitting in law school and I'm like, I can't believe these white folks are telling me all their secrets. Give me all the information, because once I get it, I'm leaving that law school to bring it back to the hood and tell people what they can do in order to beat their case. And that's what Brother Diop talked about beating your case. And how do you beat your case? It's very, very simple. The first thing is, don't give your enemy the ammunition to destroy you. It's so many African men, young African men that I go into court with, and they got a criminal record this long. And that puts us at a disadvantage. I've represented a few white boys in my career, and they gave me so much to work with. They went to school. They got a job. They did the basic stuff, so now I can put them on the stand and they can articulate their defense. But when I got a client who has a very long criminal record, or if I got a client who shoots a police officer on videotape, it's not a whole lot you can do with that. So I'm saying that what you got, I'm not suggesting that people be smart criminals, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying don't give your enemy the rope to hang you with. Anytime you go into court, the prosecution has to prove you guilty. That means that when the jury decides the case of the judge, they have two choices, guilty or not guilty. That's important. Guilty or not guilty. The question is not guilty or innocent. The question is guilty or not guilty. Juries never decide whether you're innocent. Innocent means you didn't do it. The question of whether or not you did it is totally irrelevant in the courtroom. Totally irrelevant. The question is not did you do it. The question is can they prove it. That's why when the jury goes back to deliberate, they got two choices. Guilty means the prosecution proved it. Not guilty means the prosecution didn't prove it, which means you can commit a crime and still be not guilty. That's very, very critically important. Let me just talk briefly about two things you can do, and I want to turn it to Leon, in order to beat not only your case, but to put the system on the defensive. It's two things. One is called jury nullification. The other is called private criminal complaint. Now, as a lawyer, and Leon will tell you this, there's certain things we as lawyers can't say. In other words, we can't tell people to engage in jury nullification. You might say, what's jury nullification? Jury nullification is when you basically ask the jury to say, pardon my language, fuck the law, I'm not going to find this guy guilty. He might have done it, but I think the system is so unfair. I think the law is so unjust, or I think the law is being applied so unjustly that I'm just going to nullify the law. I'm going to ignore the law, and I'm going to find the defendant not guilty. There was a big case in Chicago about 10 years ago where community activists had called the police 10, 15, 20 times to shut down the drug house. The cops probably were in collusion with the drug dealers in the drug house, or the community activists one day went and firebombed the drug house. Just blew it up. Went to trial. The jury heard the case, and he didn't put on defense. He basically said, yeah, I called the cops, I told them to arrest these drug dealers, they wouldn't, so I firebombed the house. That's arson. The jury found him not guilty. They nullified the law. Now again, as lawyers, I can't tell you that you should nullify the law. Your conscience should be your guide. I'm just saying that in every case where a white police officer is charged with brutalizing a black person, and the evidence of a woman, on the video you saw it, it was the brutal beating of Delbert Africa, on videotape. You saw the cops beat the shit out of him in front of everybody, so he kicked him so hard in the head that it appeared that his head was going to fly off his neck. Well, when that case went to the jury, in fact, it didn't even go to the jury. The lawyers for the cop told the judge that the evidence against the cop was so weak that the judge should not give the case to the jury to decide. It's called a motion for judgment of acquittal. It means that the evidence is so weak that the judge has a legal obligation not to give the case to the jury, but the judge says himself, the case is weak, I'm throwing it out. Now the Delbert Africa beating, you saw it. Delbert Africa got his hands up, he's surrendering, one cop bashes him in the head with a motorcycle cop's helmet, he falls to the ground, they kick him in the face, kick him in the head. That's simple assault. That's aggravated assault. That's reckless endangerment. That's conspiracy. That's 5, 6, 7, 8 different charges. The judge sees that. But the judge looks at it and says, nah, there's not enough evidence. I'm not even going to give it to the jury. I'm acquitting the defendants right now. When you see the cops in New York, Amadou Diallo, 42 shots. When you see the Rodney King beating on videotape, it's interesting because they tell us as lawyers that we can't tell black jurors to ignore the law, but white judges and white jurors do it very often. So I'm just saying that as a lawyer, I can't advise you to do anything illegal, because technically jury nullification is illegal. But what I can say is that you can allow your conscience to be your guide. You can allow mercy or sympathy to play a role in certain cases. So I need to say this before I move on to the private criminal complaint. In every jury trial that I'm involved in, the John Lewis case involving the murder of Officer Cassidy was a prime example. In every jury I'm involved in, when the white people come in, they bring in 40 people, and from those 40, we select 12 jurors and 2 alternates. White people are fighting to get on the jury. Fighting to get on the jury. They make up a million reasons why they should be on it. On the other hand, when black people come up, they find a million reasons to get off the jury. And it's primarily young black men who are potential jurors who find reasons to get off juries. It's one basic situation in America where black people can stand up to the system and beat it. Voting is important, getting an education is important, getting a job is important, all those things are important. But it's one thing you can do in America as a black man or a black woman and bring the system to its knees, and that's being a juror. If you're a juror, I don't care whether you love O.J. Simpson or hate O.J. Simpson. I actually hated him because he didn't become black until he got locked up. But let's put that to the side. The fact of the matter is that here was a black man who was about to be crushed by the system for killing 2 white folks. And some black folks on the jury are like, hold it. I mean, the evidence is kind of weak. Yeah, I think O.J. did. He had the means, he had the motive, he had the opportunity, but I'm not really sure about that. I see some racism here. I see Mark Furman. I see the glove doesn't fit. I see all of this stuff, and these jurors stood up. And because those jurors stood up, you have a black man, forget the fact that he's O.J., but a black man being found not guilty. So my first point is, one of the best examples of black power in America is to get on juries. Get on juries and do the right thing. I can't tell you to find every black person not guilty, but I can tell you to get on the jury and do the right thing.